Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 58. Don't just live a life of black and white when there is a spectrum of colors available for you. Don't confine yourself. Instead, express yourself and have some fun. Ruby Ann, Colorist.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my indie film hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Don't forget to head over to freefilmbook.com. That's freefilmbook.com to download your free film audiobook from Audible. And today's show is sponsored by Filmmaking Hacks, how to shoot and market your independent film. Head over to filmmakinghacks.com to download your discounted version. So guys, today I wanted to talk about how to work with a colorist. I've been a colorist now for, I think, about 12 years. So I've colored a ton of features, music videos, TV commercials, promos, all that kind of stuff. So I have a little bit of experience working with other filmmakers in the color room. So I wanted to kind of give you guys some tips on how to get the most out of those color sessions, because those color sessions could be really expensive. And if you don't know as a director and a producer or as a filmmaker in what to do when you're in a color session, you can kind of waste a lot of money. So I have a handful of tips that I wanted to talk to you guys about first. So first and foremost, you've got to have a vision. You have to have an understanding of what you want to do in the color suite and what color will do in the storytelling process, whether that be a music video or commercial. But for this podcast, we're going to focus on independent film and long form feature films and short films as well, narrative. So what I mean is do your research. So if you're gonna go in to a color session with a short film, an action short film, and you have no reference point, you have no ideas about what you want to do, and you go, Bud, we're going to call the guy Bud. Bud, he's the colorist. Bud, the colorist, can you come up with some cool stuff? And then this whole creation and searching for the look comes into play. And there is a part of that in the color session without question. But if you can fast forward through that process to walk in and go, you know what, I really love The Matrix. And that was kind of the vibe I wanted to go with this, like those kind of dark hues, the green hues through everything. And then sometimes you'll be able to do it and sometimes you won't. And I'll talk about that in a second. But at least have a point of reference. Like, you know what, man, I love Michael Bay movies. I want the really crunched down blacks, meaning like really contrasty and really bright colors and blow out the highlights. And that's kind of what the vibe I want on this. Or, you want to go down a more dramatic point and, I really love Birdman. I really want to go down that route. Or I loved Whiplash. I love the way that looked. Or, Carol. I love the way Carol looked. Or any of these other movies. I'm just throwing movies out that I recently just seen. But you have to have a reference point, and preferably multiple reference points. So you don't just get one. So you have multiple movies that are in the same world, and the colors can get an idea of. Now, ideally, what would have happened is you would have sent stills to the colors prior to your session. So you've captured stills off the movie so they can kind of have it, or you can have those stills with you when you come into the session, but preferably you did it beforehand so he or she has an idea of what you want prior to getting in the room. Or you just send them the movie titles. Like, I want The Matrix, I want Shawshank. I want this to be a mixture of Shawshank, Blade Runner, The Matrix, and Dumb and Dumber. See, that's not going to work real well, but there's so many different things going on there. But if you give them a bunch of I want it to look like The Rock, Armageddon, and Bad Boys, and those are the three movies that are all in the same world, all the same kind of palette, and the colorist would then understand where to start the point from. Now, next tip is when you ask for these things and you have that vision, you have to understand that there are limitations of what the colorist can do. So when you say, I want a movie to look like The Matrix, well, The Matrix had a tremendous amount of design involved. All the costumes were designed around this color palette. All the production design was designed around the color palette. And then the DP was shooting for this color palette as well as the colorist towards the end. Now, if you didn't do all those other things in the front in production, you can't expect the colors to automatically turn your movie into the Matrix. Now, a lot of plugins out there and a lot of little packages and stuff like that gave you the Matrix look. And that's all fine and dandy, but there's a reason why those things never looked as good as the Matrix, because they had this plan. So as a filmmaker, you should have color planned out while you're shooting. You should be thinking about color, the costumes, the design of the environments, whether that be an apartment, whether that be cars, whether that be whatever. Think about color. Think about the emotion of color and what that's going to be doing to your characters throughout the piece. Someone wearing red is going to have a very different. So if you have a beautiful young lady walking down the street wearing a bright red tight outfit as opposed to a purple one or a yellow one or a green one, same dress, different colors, that gives you a different emotional trigger. So you have to understand the different concepts of color. And we won't go into color theory in this episode, but that's something I encourage all you guys to go out and study, is color theory and what each color represents emotionally for your characters and for your environment. So guys, the colorist is not a miracle worker in that sense as far as creating looks are concerned. They're going to do their darndest, but sometimes those looks are not achievable because you were not able to give him I always use the terminology meat. If you give me the meat, I'll cook it right, but if you don't give me the right meat, it's very difficult to cook a good meal. So that's similar idea. So another tip, guys, is to understand what the colorist is there to do. The colorist is there to change and balance and create looks in your film, in your negative or in your raw file. So the colorist is there to balance everything out, because it's nearly impossible to do everything in camera to balance it out, especially digitally nowadays. Even in the olden days with film, they still could not make everything perfect. They did do some sort of coloring in the lab prior to DI or digital intermediate coloring, what we know today as digital color grading. So he's there to really balance things out. Sometimes the darks, in one shot are going to be off the other ones because they didn't have enough light or just couldn't make it match that day. He's there to match each shot in the sequence and then overall look of the entire movie. So and make the actors look amazing. And what you can do in a color suite today is remarkable. I'm going to talk a little bit about the technology a little bit later in the episode. But that's another thing. Just understand what he's there to do. He's not there to create magic and do things like that. He's there to not only balance things out, sometimes he's there to save your butt, because a lot of times the DP or just production issues did not allow enough light in the day, enough budget to get lights in, or the sun went down and it was going down while you're shooting it, and then the color temperature's changing while in the middle of the shot. It's his or her job to balance all that out and sometimes pull light and do digital cinematography while they're in the color suite with things called power windows, which I'll get to. But they can actually go in and bring out light and darken other areas off, or pull out an extension cord or a stinger that was there that you didn't really want it to be there, things like that. So there's so many different things that a colorist can do, but understand that that's his role, okay? Next, take breaks. Sometimes you're in a room and you just sit there for 3 hours, 4 hours, just pounding on this one shot. And guess what? Your eyes will blur out. Your eyes will start not being able to see the differences between different colors and so on. So I always suggest every hour or so to get up for 5 minutes, walk outside, just don't look at the shot, refresh your eye, refresh yourself and refresh your eye, come back in clean, watch it again and move forward. Don't beat up the colorist, nitpicking here and there when, I always tell my clients, I'm like, look, before we start going in really nitpicking each shot, if you have a lot of money and you want to just keep spending money all day, fantastic. We'll sit here for the next 2 months. But if you have a budget and you have a certain amount of time you have to deal with, get one pass of the entire movie done, and then go back and handle the big things that need to be fixed. And then go back, if you have time, and pick up the little knick-knack things here and there. Like, I really wish that light glowed a little bit more. Her skin dropped, was a little softer here or there. And I would be focusing on that then. So don't try to do everything to perfection as you go forward. Again, this is on budget. If you have a budget or a package or a limited amount of time, and most office independent filmmakers will have that, you have to really kind of look at the global or the broad view of what you're trying to achieve. So don't get stuck on the little minutia. Make sure you get the whole movie done at least once where everything is balanced, and then you can go back and tweak and have fun and really make things look as perfect as you can for the time and budget that you have. Another huge thing you have to keep an eye on is understanding basic technology. Understand the basic tech involved with color grading. You don't need to be a colorist yourself. You just have to understand the basic terms and understand the basic tools of what color grading is. So you have to understand what contrast is. You have to understand what luminance is. But the big thing you have to understand is what power windows are. Power windows are so powerful. And they can save your butt and make your movie look amazing. So understand the basic tech so you can talk to your colorist at least at his level to a certain extent. You're not expected to know everything. That's if you did, you would be doing it yourself. But you hire a colorist because they're bringing their talent, their experience, and so on to the project. But just understand the basic technology running on it. Generally, all the color suites are going to either be a base light suite or more likely a Da Vinci suite. Da Vinci is the industry standard. And where most color suites are Da Vinci at this point. Understanding the basic terminology, basic technology of color grading will not only save you time, but a lot of cash because you'll be able to move that much quicker. All right, guys? And finally, guys, understand that the colorist and you as a filmmaker, this is a creative partnership. You guys are creating the look together. So if you go in it that way, you're going to get a lot more from your colorist. If you go in going, I just want this, and screw your ideas, you're a monkey, push those buttons. That's the same. If you did that with an editor and you did that with any technical or any artistic position in this process, you wouldn't make it very far as a director. Honestly, just understand that this is a creative partnership, that you are working together to come up with a look, to come up with this beautiful image to make your movie better and hopefully have more production value, and at the end make your movie look so amazing that you can sell it and the audiences love it. And if you don't color grade your movie, you're a fool. You have to color grade your movie today. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Don't try to do it yourself unless you're a professional color grader. It's really, really an art form. I've been doing it for many years. I did my first movie by myself. This is before the technology was so affordable and before there was colorists around the corner. Nowadays, I would definitely use a professional colorist because you're going to save a ton of time and cash. All right, guys? So I hope this episode helped you guys understand a little bit more about how to work with a colorist and make sure movies look remarkable and amazing. So thanks, guys, again for listening. If you want to get the show notes for this episode, head over to indiefilmhustle.com/058. And as always, head to filmmakingpodcast.com and leave us a review for the show. It really helps the show out a lot. Keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.